On a chilly autumn night, the streets of Los Angeles shimmered under the glow of neon lights and the hum of endless traffic. Elon Musk, the man often associated with spaceships, electric cars, and bold visions of the future, stepped out of SpaceX headquarters with a weariness that seemed to weigh more on his spirit than his body. Inside his black Tesla Model X, the driver was already waiting. But Elon paused. Something about the quiet, expansive night made him reluctant to climb into the car. The grand ideas he worked on every day, the Mars missions, the AI breakthroughs, suddenly felt distant, like pieces of a puzzle that no longer connected to the world around him. "You go ahead," Elon said, his voice low but decisive. The driver hesitated for a moment before nodding. The car gliding away into the night. Alone, Elon began walking down the street, blending into the city's rhythm. The streets were alive with the sights and sounds of ordinary life. Vendors called out their wares. Couples strolled hand in hand, and laughter echoed from a nearby cafe. For Elon, these moments were a rarity. His life was consumed by boardrooms and labs, leaving little room for simple human connection. As he walked, a sudden urge struck him. He wanted to ride the subway. It had been decades since he'd last stepped onto a train, and the thought of reconnecting with this slice of reality intrigued him. Descending the stairs into the subway station, Elon was greeted by the familiar hum of trains, the metallic scent of machinery, and the faint vibration of energy that pulsed through the underground. He purchased a ticket, the act itself feeling strangely nostalgic, and passed through the turnstile. On the platform, he observed the crowd around him. There were workers with tired faces, students engrossed in their phones, and elderly couples chatting quietly. Each person carried a story, a life filled with struggles and dreams. For the first time in a long while, Elon felt like just another face in the crowd. When the train arrived, Elon stepped into the carriage, choosing a seat near the window. The train began to move, its gentle sway oddly soothing. Elon gazed out at the dimly lit tunnels, his thoughts drifting between memories of his past and reflections on the present. And then he saw them. In the far corner of the carriage sat two little girls, no older than 5 or 6, huddled together. Their tiny legs dangled from the seat, their faces pale and anxious. One of them clutched a worn stuffed animal, while the other leaned against her sister, her wide eyes filled with unease. Elon's brows furrowed. The girls were alone, no adults in sight. The older one, who seemed more alert, glanced around nervously, as if expecting someone to reprimand them. The sight sent a pang through Elon's chest. He couldn't ignore it. Elon sat still, his eyes fixed on the corner of the carriage where the two girls were huddled. The rattling of the train and the faint hum of conversation around him blurred into the background as he focused on the children. Something about their small, fragile figures stirred a deep unease within him. He took a deep breath, his mind already racing with questions. Why are they alone? Where are their parents? Are they lost? As the train curved gently, the older girl lifted her head, her wary eyes scanning the carriage. For a fleeting moment, her gaze met Elon's. He offered a small, reassuring smile, but her expression remained guarded. Unable to ignore the pull of concern, Elon stood up and slowly made his way toward the girls. He moved cautiously, mindful not to alarm them. As he approached, the older sister instinctively pulled her younger sibling closer, her arms protective and her expression tense. "Hi there," Elon said softly, crouching slightly to meet their eye level. His voice was warm and steady, the tone he often used when speaking to his own children. "Are you two okay?" The older girl tightened her grip on the stuffed animal and didn't reply immediately. The younger one, who had been leaning against her sister, buried her face in her sibling's shoulder, her small hands clutching the fabric of her sister's shirt. Elon waited patiently, sensing their fear. "I don't mean to scare you," he continued gently. "I just noticed you're sitting here alone. Are you waiting for someone?" After a long pause, the older girl finally spoke. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "We're waiting for Mom." Elon nodded, careful not to show the growing concern in his chest. "Where is your mom? Is she on the train with you?" The girl shook her head, her lips pressing into a thin line. "She told us to wait at the station," she said, her voice trembling. "But she didn't come. We got scared, so we got on the train." Those words hit Elon like a punch to the gut. He could picture the scene, the two children waiting in an unfamiliar place, growing more frightened as time passed, and eventually making the desperate decision to board the train. He glanced around the carriage, but none of the passengers seemed to have noticed the girl's plight. "What are your names?" Elon asked softly. The older girl hesitated before replying. "I'm Maya, and this is my little sister, Mia." Elon smiled gently. "Maya and Mia, those are beautiful names. My name is Elon." He paused, studying their small, tired faces. "You don't have to worry anymore. I'm going to help you." Maya looked at him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "Are you really going to help us?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I promise," Elon said firmly. He straightened up and looked around the carriage. Spotting a subway staff member near the door, he waved the man over, explaining the situation in a calm but urgent tone. "These two girls are lost," Elon said. "We need to contact the police or someone who can help us find their mother." The staff member, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, nodded immediately. "I'll call the authorities right away," he said, his expression turning serious. "Please stay with them while I make the call." Elon returned to the girls, sitting down on the bench across from them. "The subway staff is going to call for help," he explained, keeping his tone soothing. "In the meantime, can you tell me more about your mom? What's her name? Do you know where she works?" Maya hesitated again, her small fingers clutching the worn stuffed animal. "Her name is May," she said softly. "She works at the hospital. She wears a white coat." Elon nodded, piecing together the limited information. He could sense that Maya was trying her best to stay brave, but the weight of the situation was clearly overwhelming her. Meanwhile, Mia remained silent, her head resting against her sister's shoulder, her small body visibly trembling. Elon leaned forward slightly, his voice gentle. "It's going to be okay. Maya and Mia, I won't leave until we find your mom." Maya looked at him, her eyes glistening with tears. For the first time, she loosened her grip on the stuffed animal, clutching it less tightly. Elon could see a flicker of trust forming in her expression. The train arrived at the next station, and the doors slid open with a soft chime. The subway staff member returned, his face lined with concern. "The police are on their way," he said. "They'll meet us at the next station. They'll need some information from the girls to help find their mother." Elon nodded, his focus remaining on Maya and Mia. "Thank you," he said. "I'll stay with them until this is resolved." As the train began moving again, Elon turned his attention back to the girls. "Do you remember the name of the station where you were waiting for your mom?" he asked. Maya shook her head, her small shoulders slumping. "It was the one with the big bench," she said, her voice barely audible. "We waited there for a long time." Elon felt a pang of empathy as he imagined the fear and confusion the girls must have felt. He leaned forward, his voice calm and reassuring. "You both were very brave," he said. "Getting on the train might have been scary, but it was the right thing to do. And now, we're going to make sure you're safe." The younger sister, Mia, lifted her head slightly, her wide, tear-filled eyes meeting Elon's. "Is mommy coming?" she asked in a tiny voice. Elon's heart ached at the question. "We're doing everything we can to find her," he said gently. "The police will help us. And I'll stay with you until she gets here." Mia nodded, her small hand reaching out hesitantly to touch Elon's sleeve. He felt the light, trembling grip of her fingers and placed his hand over hers, offering comfort. When the train reached the next station, the doors opened to reveal a police officer standing on the platform. He was tall, with a kind face that immediately softened when he saw the two girls. He stepped into the carriage, kneeling to their level. "Hello, girls," the officer said, his voice gentle. "My name is Officer Parker, and I'm here to help you. We're going to find your mom and make sure you're safe." Maya and Mia looked at him cautiously, but the warmth in his tone seemed to ease their tension slightly. Elon stood nearby, watching the interaction with a sense of relief. For the first time that evening, he felt like they were moving closer to a resolution. The small security office at the subway station was dimly lit, with worn chairs and a cluttered desk. Maya and Mia sat together on a bench, their legs dangling as they huddled close. Elon stayed by their side, his presence steady and reassuring. Officer Parker had stepped outside to coordinate with other officers and check for any reports of a missing person matching the description of May, the girl's mother. Elon looked down at the sisters. Maya was hugging her stuffed animal tightly, her eyes scanning the room nervously. "Mia, exhausted from the long evening, leaned against her sister, her head drooping slightly. Elon bent down to their level, his voice soft. "Are you too hungry?" he asked gently. "Or thirsty? I can get you something while we wait." Maya shook her head, her expression tense. "I just want mommy," she whispered. Elon felt his chest tighten. "I know," he said. "She's on her way. Officer Parker is working hard to bring her here as soon as possible." "You're both very brave." The door opened, and Officer Parker entered, his expression lighter than before. "Good news," he said. "We've found your mom. She contacted us after hearing about the situation from the hospital staff. She's on her way here now." Maya's head shot up, her eyes wide with hope. "Mommy's coming?" she asked, her voice trembling. "That's right," Parker said with a kind smile. "She'll be here very soon." Maya turned to Mia, shaking her gently. "Mommy's coming," she said, her voice more animated than it had been all evening. Mia opened her eyes slowly, her small face lighting up with relief. Elon felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He had been prepared to stay all night if needed, but the thought of the girls reuniting with their mother filled him with a profound sense of satisfaction. Minutes later, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway outside the room. The door burst open, and a woman rushed in, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. She wore scrubs under a worn jacket, and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her gaze swept the room frantically until it landed on the two small figures on the bench. Mia, she cried, her voice breaking. "Mommy," Maya shouted, jumping off the bench and running into her mother's arms. Mia followed, her little legs moving as fast as they could. The woman dropped to her knees, pulling both girls into a tight embrace, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, my babies," she sobbed, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I was so scared." The girls clung to her, their small hands gripping her tightly as if they were afraid to let go. "We waited for you, Mommy," Maya said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. "We didn't know what to do." Their mother stroked their hair, her tears falling freely. "I know, sweethearts. I'm so sorry. I couldn't get there in time. I tried, but I couldn't leave the hospital." She pulled back slightly, her hands cupping their small faces. "I'll never let this happen again." Elon watched the reunion quietly, his heart heavy with a mixture of relief and sadness. He could see the love and desperation in the mother's eyes, the way she held her daughters as if they were the most precious things in the world. It was a deeply human moment, one that reminded him of the fragility of life and the strength of family bonds. After a few moments, the woman looked up, noticing Elon and Officer Parker for the first time. She stood, still holding her daughters close, and wiped her tears with a trembling hand. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "Thank you for taking care of my girls. I don't know what I would have done if something had happened to them." Parker nodded kindly. "We're just glad they're safe," he said, "but you'll need to explain what happened so we can ensure something like this doesn't happen again." The woman nodded, her expression filled with regret. "I'm May," she said, her voice soft. "I'm a nurse at the Central Hospital. Tonight, we had an emergency, a critical patient, and I couldn't leave. I told the girls to wait for me at the station, but I never imagined they'd get so scared that they'd board the train on their own." Her voice broke, and she clutched her daughters tighter. "I've been doing everything I can to keep us afloat since my husband passed away a few months ago. But sometimes, it feels like it's not enough." Elon stepped forward, his expression gentle. "You've been doing your best," he said. "You're working hard to provide for your daughters. That's not something to feel ashamed of." May looked at him, her eyes widening slightly as recognition dawned. "You're Elon Musk?" she asked, disbelief coloring her voice. Elon smiled faintly. "I am," he said, "but tonight, I'm just someone who wanted to help." May shook her head, tears welling up again. "I don't know how to thank you. You didn't have to do this." Elon glanced at Maya and Mia, who were still clinging to their mother. "Sometimes," he said, "we all need a little help. And right now, I think you and your daughters could use some support." May stared at him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "You've already done so much," she said. "I don't even know where to start." Elon's gaze softened. "Let's make sure you all get home safely tonight," he said. "Then we'll figure out what comes next." The next morning, Elon couldn't stop thinking about the family. He sat in his office at SpaceX, staring out the window as the Los Angeles skyline stretched before him. The image of Maya and Mia's tear-streaked faces stayed with him. Along with May's quiet desperation, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he could do. Picking up his phone, he called his assistant. "I need you to find a house," he said, "something safe, in a good neighborhood, near schools and not far from downtown. And I need it today." He spent the rest of the day making calls and arranging meetings. By evening, he had a plan in place. He called May and invited her to meet him at his office the following day. When May arrived, she looked hesitant but determined. She held Mia's hand while Maya walked close by her side. Elon greeted them warmly and invited them to sit down. "I've been thinking about your situation," he began, his tone sincere, "and I want to help. First, I've arranged for you to move into a new home, a safe, comfortable place where you and the girls can feel secure." May's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. "A new home?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elon nodded. "I've also spoken with my team at Tesla. We have a position available at one of our stores. A job with flexible hours so you can spend more time with your daughters." Tears spilled down May's cheeks. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. This will change everything for us." "You don't need to thank me," Elon said. "Just focus on taking care of your family." May sat silently for a moment, overwhelmed by the enormity of Elon's generosity. Maya and Mia looked up at their mother, sensing her emotions but not fully grasping the significance of what was happening. Maya clutched her stuffed animal, her small face filled with cautious hope. "Are we really getting a new house, Mommy?" Maya asked, her voice soft but tinged with excitement. May turned to her daughter, her eyes glistening with tears. "Yes, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. "Mr. Musk has given us an incredible gift." Elon leaned forward, addressing May directly. "The house is ready for you to move in tomorrow. My team has stocked it with everything you'll need, furniture, appliances, even a small study area for the girls. It's close to a good school. And I've arranged transportation for your first few weeks until you get settled." May shook her head in disbelief. "You've done so much," she said, her voice breaking. "Why? You don't even know us." Elon's expression softened. "Sometimes we cross paths with people for a reason. When I saw Maya and Mia on that train, I couldn't look away. I've been fortunate in my life. And it's only right to use that fortune to help when I can." May wiped her tears, her hands trembling. "This is more than help," she said. "You've changed our lives." The next day, Elon personally escorted May and her daughters to their new home. The modest but beautiful house was nestled in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. As they stepped inside, the girls' faces lit up with wonder. The living room was warm and inviting, with plush couches and colorful rugs. The kitchen sparkled with modern appliances, and the girls' bedroom was decorated with cheerful colors, complete with a bunk bed and a small bookshelf filled with children's stories. Maya ran to the bedroom, squealing with delight. "Mommy, look, we have our own room." Mia followed, her tiny hands tracing the soft bedspread. "And it's so big," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. May stood in the doorway, her hand over her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "I can't believe this," she whispered. "It's everything we've ever dreamed of." Elon smiled, watching the girls explore their new home. "You deserve this," he said. "Now you can focus on building a stable and happy life for your family." In the days that followed, May began her new job at a nearby Tesla store. The flexible hours allowed her to drop off and pick up her daughters from school, something she hadn't been able to do in months. Maya and Mia quickly adapted to their new neighborhood, making friends and excelling in their classes. Elon continued to stay in touch, visiting the family regularly. Each time, he brought small gifts, books for the girls, educational toys, or flowers for May to brighten the home. Over time, the girls grew comfortable around him, seeing him not as a billionaire but as Uncle Elon. One afternoon, Elon visited with a surprise. He brought a solar-powered toy car, a prototype designed by Tesla engineers. Maya and Mia's eyes sparkled as they watched the tiny car zip across the floor. "Can we keep it?" Maya asked eagerly. "Of course," Elon replied with a grin. "Maybe one day, you'll design cars like this yourselves." Mia giggled, holding the car close. "I want to make one that flies," she said excitedly. Elon chuckled, patting her head. "I wouldn't be surprised if you did." A year after that fateful night on the subway, the family's life had transformed. The once struggling household was now thriving. May's job at Tesla had allowed her to gain confidence and financial independence. She was able to enroll in a professional development program, which opened new doors for her career. The stability gave her time to focus on her daughters, who were flourishing in school. Maya, now 7, had developed a keen interest in science. She often spent her afternoons building small models and drawing sketches of futuristic cars and machines. Mia, though younger, showed a natural talent for storytelling, often crafting imaginative tales about their new life. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Elon invited the family to a special event at Tesla's headquarters. It was a celebration of the company's achievements, but Elon had arranged for a private moment to honor May and her daughters. During his speech, Elon addressed the audience with a heartfelt message. "Sometimes," he said, "we find inspiration in the most unexpected places. A year ago, I met 2 young girls on a subway train. They reminded me of the importance of compassion and the power of small actions. Helping them wasn't just about changing their lives, it changed mine as well. It reminded me that the true measure of success isn't in what we achieve, but in how we lift others up." The audience erupted in applause. And May, sitting in the front row with Maya and Mia, couldn't hold back her tears. Maya clutched her mother's hand, her eyes shining with pride. After the event, Elon met the family in a private lounge. Maya and Mia ran to him, hugging him tightly. "Uncle Elon, did you really talk about us?" Maya asked, her face glowing. "I did," Elon replied, kneeling to their level, "because your story is special. And I want people to know that kindness matters." Mia hugged him again, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "You're the best uncle ever," she said. Inspired by the family's journey, Elon launched a foundation dedicated to supporting single-parent households. The initiative provided housing, educational resources, and job opportunities for struggling families. May became an ambassador for the program, sharing her story to inspire others. The impact was profound. Families across the country found hope through the foundation's efforts. And Maya and Mia's story became a symbol of resilience and the power of kindness. In the years that followed, Elon continued to stay connected with the family. Maya and Mia grew into bright, ambitious young women, their lives forever shaped by the generosity of a stranger who became a part of their story. For Elon, the encounter on the subway was a turning point, a reminder that even in a world filled with grand ambitions, the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples that changed lives. And as the years passed, the laughter and joy that filled the little house on that quiet street in Los Angeles remained a testament to the enduring power of compassion.